everybody, it's your boy Marcus Norman from Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today I have a very special guest, Mr. Nick Prouten. He is a veteran in public speaking and team leader, able to pitch projects, ideas, and concepts concisely and effectively while motivating and driving on target business. Mr. Nick is measured in results, and he measured his results, and he's a successful businessman who is now on a blockchain integration project with cryptocurrency, introducing gold and silver to the platform. With nearly a decade of experience in the tech sector and half a decade in the blockchain industry, Mr. Nick is the man today to break this down. So help me welcome to the stage, Mr. Nick.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Marcus, for having me on the Gentleman Style Podcast. I'm really excited to break down all about cryptocurrencies, blockchain, and what we're doing over here at LODE. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us today. This is huge. This is major. We need your brain right now. We need your information. And thank you for taking time out of your busy day to give back in this way. So tell us, where is cryptocurrency going? Where is the technology going? Is it, some people see it as the new form of currency to replace the dollar, and some people see it as an investment vehicle. Which one is it?
Well, it's a little column A, it's a little column B, to be honest. So this is why when I go on shows, I really like to go back to the beginning and talk about what is a blockchain and what is a cryptocurrency specifically. So to start things off, blockchain is a type of technology. It is a distributed ledger, is what it's commonly known as, which basically means it's a ledger, right? It's a notebook essentially of information that is shared across multiple computers. And the best way that somebody can take a look at it is it's like a virtual handshake. That's the metaphor I'm going to run with to start with here. So right now, when you go to a grocery store, to go make a purchase, for example, what you are doing really is instigating a transaction between two trusted parties, two banks. And most often you'll use Visa in the middle to make it happen, right? What blockchain does is it provides the same service that these trusted two parties provide. So basically, it says we don't need Bank A and Bank B to be middleman between you and your dollar anymore, and between the merchant and his money anymore. We can use what's called a consensus algorithm, which is just a fancy way of saying this network of computers needs to reach an agreement with each other to act as that trusted party to make it happen. And once that information is processed, it gets put in blocks. It gets stored in blocks, hence blockchain, right? And what really is unique about this is it's like a Lego structure that you can't unstack, right? You can't change it. You can't take it apart. You can't turn it into the Millennium Falcon or something like that. It's literally stuck as in this block, and it can only go forward, right? So this is where you often hear terms like immutability come into play, right? And so that is essentially how a blockchain works. And I used an example of a transaction because that is the most common use case, but this type of technology has lots of applications. Digital identity as a service is one that's coming up. So being able to create an immutable piece of digital identification to identify who you are, no matter where you are in the world. Maybe you're in an undeveloped or developing nation where your identity is, it's really hard to get a birth certificate or something, right? This kind of technology can help create a solid, true identification for yourself that is universal. Real estate, energy. There are lots of applications of blockchain technology. So that's point number one. Point number two is, what is a cryptocurrency? Yes. Cryptocurrencies are financial tools that use blockchains. They use this technology. They're built on top of this technology. So to answer your initial question, is it a stock bond, or is it a stock? Is it a financial instrument, or is it a currency? It is whatever it is designed to be. So there are cryptocurrencies that are effectively, act like securities. They act like stocks and like bonds. Then there are projects like what we create at LODE, which are designed to have all the same properties as cash and just meant to be used as vehicles for conducting your business, for conducting trading commerce, right? And so it's about, what is this project building with this blockchain and how are they applying it? Most companies out there are putting out security tokens, or they're putting out tokens that are essentially stock, bonds, and ETFs. But there's still a lot of wiggle room in terms of regulation for the most part. And one of the most interesting things on my journey that I've had to deal with is working hand in hand with regulators in the United States and in 135 different countries to bring this new technology and to get them on board with it. So what is it? Well, I think it's the future of finance ultimately, right? So I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, what you're going to see happen is most of the traditional stock, bonds, ETFs, they're all going to be ported over to using blockchains, right? But they're still going to be stock, bonds, and ETFs. They're still going to have all the same regulations on them. They're just going to be using a new technology to record the transactions that are taking place, right? Similarly, you probably, if you're a cryptocurrency investor out there, you've probably heard the word stablecoin or government-backed currency, like USDT or USDC. China's putting out their own government-backed currency as well. Largely, the entire financial sector is beginning to port to using the same kind of money that we already know, but just using a new vehicle so that it integrates and plays nice with the overall movement of the market. So I honestly just dumped a ton of information on you, Marcus. So I'll put the ball back into your court, but this is kind of a rough state of the union of what these currencies are, what is the technology, and where do I think we're going over the next few years.
That makes tremendous sense. And that's huge, right? And that's huge. And so I love how you broke that down. Blockchains, right? Block. It's stackable, right? And it can't be undone. It can't be removed. It can't be destroyed. But let's see, how safe is it? How secure is it? Because I heard that one of the benefits to blockchain is that it's a safe, secure environment. It's now it's virtual. So that means it can be hacked, right? It can be compromised in some way, right?
I mean, yes and no. So this is where the decentralization buzzword that everybody hears about comes into play, right? So this consensus algorithm that I was talking about earlier, this network of miners and processors that are all hooking up to the system and processing these transactions, and this network of computers is in like the tens of thousands for a public blockchain known as like something like Bitcoin, right? And so in order for you to compromise the Bitcoin network and quote unquote hack the blockchain or Bitcoin, it will require you to get 51% minimum in order of all these computers. You would have to compromise them all simultaneously in order to affect this blockchain. So when you think about the fact that I can take my mobile device and I can start mining blockchain or mining Bitcoin with it, and you've got whole warehouses of supercomputers over in China processing Bitcoin, and some dude in his parents' basement, and in somewhere in Latin America, right? Like everybody in it, like you can think of all classes and all walks of life, you would have to simultaneously take them all down in order to compromise the blockchain. So the technology itself is actually extremely secure. The more distributed it becomes, there are private blockchains that could potentially be more easily compromised, right? And that is the risk that running on a private network. Let's say you're a corporation like Ripple, right? Mm-hmm. That is the risk that you run with that, because all of your computers are controlled by one single entity. There might be thousands of them all over the world, but they probably act like one big network all acting together. And that creates greater risk. That being said, no one for any of the top 10 blockchains out there, and honestly, I would argue any of the blockchains have been hacked at this point. There probably are some small, like, I just built this myself, DIY blockchain people out there where they've had their blockchains hacked, but none of the major multi-billion-dollar chains that are out there in the public market have been compromised as of yet. So there's that. But Marcus, you go to me and you say, Nick, come on, dude. Like, I've heard about cryptocurrency exchanges getting hacked. So what is going on here? People are absconding with billions of dollars. Well, that comes down to largely human error and to older technologies, legacy technologies that give us comfort, but are much more accessible. So if you go on a cryptocurrency exchange and you put, Nick's email and Nick's password 123 in there, if you were to leave that on your computer and your computer got hacked and they all of a sudden had the password to your account, or they, any number of human mistakes that you might make to give somebody access to your account. This is what's really taking place during these hacks that are taking place. People are getting access to databases of information and using that to get into these crypto exchanges and rob people of capital. It's not that the blockchain itself is being hacked. So hopefully that makes sense, Marcus.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's operational error. So it's my error, me leaving my account. That's why they put such a big when I first invested in cryptocurrency, they made it very plain, and they put it out there that they say, listen, you need to remember this password. You need to remember this login. It's not like you got your Hotmail account hacked and now you need to reset your password. It's not that. You need to maintain this account because it has all your investments. And so they tell you that when you invest in the bigger cryptocurrencies, don't leave your password lying around. Don't leave this information lying around. And
beyond that, sorry, and I did not mean to cut you off there.
You're good.
Beyond that, there is this huge level of responsibility with your money, not even getting hacked, because if you lose that mnemonic passphrase that they're going to give you, that code to get into your private wallet, you're hooped. There's nobody on God's green earth that can get back into that account.
Right.
So there's greater autonomy that you get with this technology, but there's also greater responsibility, great power, great responsibility. Spider-Man, timeless quote.
Love it. That is powerful, Mr. Nicholas. That's huge. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We got to pay some bills, y'all. We got to keep the podcast going, but we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Good day, podcast listeners. This is your boy, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I wanted to let you guys know that we will be rolling out a new feature and adding a join sponsor button next to the subscriber button here at the bottom of your screen. Once you click the button, it will display 3 membership levels: Gentleman Gentry, which is our entry level; Duke Duchess, which is our season level; and the Emperor and Empress, which is our most sophisticated level, which you will receive unique perks and benefits at each differing level and gain access to our community tab. We will also be sharing polls, upcoming events, and interviews, as well as receive feedback from our sponsors directly. Your support helps me find new and exciting guests to bring to the stage live. Well, in order to get the higher end speakers, it requires, you guessed it, money. So thank you for tuning in to my channel, and if becoming a sponsor sounds good to you, then select the join button below and choose your desired sponsor level. Let's continue to grow and serve the future of generations of men and women to come. Love you guys. Bye. Hey everybody, if you are just tuning in, we have the incredible, amazing Mr. Nicholas Prouten and his company, his mind is, if you missed it, this man just broke down cryptocurrency and what the market is doing and how we need to be more responsible with our cryptocurrency information, our cryptocurrency wallet. But he also broke down the difference between and the integration of blockchain and cryptocurrency and how they work. How they work together. Thank you for that. I told you he's awesome, right? So if you missed that, scroll back, tune in, and check him out. So now we're gonna dive in a little bit deeper. We're gonna talk about the cryptocurrency and the decentralization and some of the issues that you're running into, right? So what are some of the problems that you are experiencing trying to make cryptocurrency, and specifically what you do, the integration of gold and silver into cryptocurrency and into blockchain? What are some of the obstacles that you're trying to overcome, and why the hustle? Why the fight? It should be a simple transition, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You would think, but as with most things, no. But there's some old adage in there that I'm going to butcher here right now about nothing good in life comes easy, or something along those lines, and I do live by that to an extent. So here's the thing. there are a couple major hustles in here. One is we're breaking up power structures that have existed for like few hundred years, arguably thousands of years, traditional banking ecosystems and power structures. And I'm not putting on the tinfoil hat here and going down a conspiracy rabbit hole, but the reality is that the network of banking in the world is controlled by largely a small body of people that get to dictate the terms of everything, of how we run trade and commerce in our lives. And they have a vested interest, and like just like any other business, and they are businesses, they have a vested interest in maintaining the oligopoly that they have, that power structure, because it puts them at the top. So along comes cryptocurrency in, well, I mean, 2011 largely, when Bitcoin first started coming out, but let's go back to 2016, 2017, and Bitcoin starts blowing up. And it says, well, actually, we don't have to play chess anymore. I can play checkers. We're going to go play checkers over here. We don't need to play with you. And the banking industry loses its mind.
Yep.
They're like, absolutely not. This is a scam. Shut it all down. Jamie Dimon's going on TV and saying like, this is a scam. And then in the same breath, going in and swooping up huge stacks of Bitcoin, because they know the potential of the technology, but they didn't know how to integrate it into their business. Right.
Or they didn't want to.
Or if they even wanted to, right? So, right. Flash forward 2021, now we're at a point where most financial institutions understand what a blockchain is and what a cryptocurrency is, how to build one, how to get people to buy them and use them, and how to basically integrate their business models with that. There's still a big push in the market for that liberation, that sort of independence from traditional systems out there, and that's going to play a more significant role in the future. But now largely the sector understands what it is that they're playing with, and feels like they can have a healthy participation in the market. So that's why now you're seeing a lot of these major financial institutions have whole blockchain departments, have cryptocurrency trading on their platforms, and are advocating for the technology now, because they're moving huge sections of their funds. I shouldn't say huge sections. They're moving portions of their funds into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So there's a huge shift in perception, and that regulation, fighting up against those superpowers that be, has been one major hustle. Fighting up against the public perception that those institutions have created of us is one as well. And there's also a little bit of counterintuitiveness with the people who initially invested in cryptocurrency. And I say this as out of love. I am not here to hate on anybody's wealth appreciation. I am, a big supporter of everybody in the space. That being said, when you are trying to go into institutional family offices and stuff like that, and you're trying to be like, this is the future of money, and they're like, they go, and then they go on a Reddit forum, and it's like, when Lambos, when Moon, Diamond Hands, hodl, like, let's go have after parties in a strip club. You're like, okay, well, we've got an image problem here that we have to work on, right? So that public perception of what cryptocurrency was and what it meant has been something that we've been working on for 4 or 5 years now. Then there's the fact that blockchains are not very intuitive. I don't know if you got into cryptocurrency, Marcus, but if you tried to get to buy some Bitcoin, like circa 2015, 2014, the learning curve was like running into a brick wall. It wasn't a curve. It was a 90-degree angle. It was just so unintuitive. It was just so unintuitive. And it's still that way for a lot of people. I have people come into me all the time. How do I get in? How do I do this? What does this mean? What does that mean? And really, if we want to see true market adoption, and I'm not just talking about speculative adoption, people buying Bitcoin and holding because they want it to go to the moon, but actually using it for payments in their day-to-day lives, we have to take that technology of blockchain and make it as easy to use as tapping and spending your credit card, right? Because when grandma goes to the grocery store and she just taps her card, or she just inserts her debit into that card, she doesn't even need to think about it. She's not like, oh yes, this is a virtual handshake taking place between banks and it stacks like a block. Like she's just like tap, spend, and she's out, right? And we need to get to that point and that's a big part of what I do within the company that I'm a part of is try to take that critical lens to how do we make this technology easy to use.
So what needs to happen? What needs to happen to make that transition seamless? Is it, do we need a mass exodus of the US dollar, the paper dollar? Do we need to just completely wipe that out and say, listen, on May 1st, we are going to cryptocurrency. This is the currency of the United States. Get on board. Kind of like what they did with the chips, right? When they integrated the chips, they made it mandatory for businesses to now integrate the chip system, even though the rest of the world had already been doing this for decades. But the United States, what needs to happen to make that transition real life?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think the process will probably be a little less dramatic, a little more gradual. One big example of this is what Visa is recently doing. So they've come into the market now and they've said, we're going to settle to USDC, which is a United States dollar on the Ethereum blockchain, right? So that means somebody pays you in that someone will pay you in regular old US dollars, but will put it into your account on a blockchain that is backed by the US dollar, but a blockchain nonetheless, right? Okay. So these big payments and these big players are now coming into the space and making that transition kind of happen slowly but surely. And I think that will probably be the process that takes place, is because blockchains don't necessarily play nice with traditional payment systems, right? Like I can't do a debit interact payment using a blockchain. Because of that, I don't think they can just say, hey, everybody switch over, when they're still working on how to make easy, intuitive apps for people to use this technology on. So players like Visa and PayPal settling to a cryptocurrency and giving that merchant or that individual in their system, you know, that asset to play around with is part of how they make that transition happen. And you know, that's similar to what we're doing with LODE. You know, we're really starting to focus now on merchant solutions, because largely that segment of the market has been, I wouldn't say ignored, but it's been less highlighted than the consumer, the individual, the speculation, the investor, right? So creating apps and tools and hardware and software that makes it easy for businesses to actually run cryptocurrency payments and take traditional payments and move into cryptocurrency, that kind of technology coming forward is part of what needs to happen.
And that's what that's what the project you're involved is doing. You're a part of that?
Well, that's part of that. Yeah. LODE is a big elephant. So LODE at its core thinks that the money that we're using is actually pretty flawed. And I don't know about you, but the United States dollar has lost a good chunk of its purchasing power over the past 100 years. And up until about 1971 or so, the US dollar was backed by gold and silver, right? And we moved away from that. And I'm not going to put the tinfoil hat on and start saying why and all of that. But what has happened since then is that inflation has really gone through the roof, and average everyday people have lost a huge chunk of their portion power. And this is why, you know, most.
Can I stop you there? I want to stop you there because I need to break that down a little bit. What Mr. Nicholas is talking about is when the United States was on the gold standard. The gold standard is what limited the amount of dollars that the U.S. could reasonably borrow. And so when we got off of that gold standard, I think it was not Nixon. But when the president released us from the gold standard, and we no longer, every US dollar was backed by gold, physical, tangible gold. And when they removed us from the gold standard, we now had limitless potential. There was no longer a ceiling for the amount of money we could exchange. And that's what Mr. Nicholas is talking about. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to break that down.
No, I'm glad you did. Because you put it very articulately. And the thing is, it's like a frog boiling in hot water, to use that metaphor, right? It happens, this inflation happens, the erosion of our purchasing power happens so slowly, we kind of don't notice it on the day-to-day. But what used to cost me $1 when I was a kid now costs me $2. Or I'm still paying $1, but I'm getting less product, right? So the value of that dollar has gone down. And we in the Western world have this idea that we are somehow safe, right? Most people feel like they're safe, but that's an illusion, because we've already seen in the past 4 years how unstable things can get. Pandemic, any number of crises, you know, half of California burnt down. You know, there are any number of economic, political, geopolitical crises that can take place that cause, you know, the entire system to go into upheaval. And we've seen in developed nations and places all over the world what happens when currencies hit this point of hyperinflation where there's so much money in the market that their dollar is effectively worthless. Like I'm thinking about what happened in Zimbabwe or more recently in Venezuela, right? And so yeah, right. So there needs to be this push for better money, and that's what the inspiration behind LODE is, to create these currencies that have intangible value by putting gold and silver back into circulation as currency. We couldn't do this before as effectively because, well, we're not pirates. We're not going to rock around with bags of coins and chains and singing pirate songs. It's just not practical, right? Especially when we need to get divisible to small increments, right? So what this blockchain technology does, the impact it gives us is it gives us all the security of an asset like gold and silver, which is not only a safe haven asset, that has a monetary history of 5,000, 10,000 years behind it. Most of the world's empires have used gold and silver as their foundation for money. You get all the stability, all that security and comfort that comes with gold that people already know, but you've married it to this new technology that makes it global and secure and spendable and peer-to-peer enabled, right? So you can send it to your friends easily. All of that stuff is made accessible through that blockchain technology. So we think we're putting together the best of both worlds. And we're not saying that right now you need to believe us and that you need to put it all in our digital gold and into our digital silver. But what we are saying is that most prudent financial planning says at least some of your portfolio should be in gold and silver, and that if you are maybe a little cautious about going into the cryptocurrency market because it's so volatile and Bitcoin can lose half its value in a day, this is a great way to tiptoe your way into the market and start building a digital portfolio that's going to have some stopping power and going to outlast whatever financial crises might come into the mix in the future there. So that is largely where LODE was inspired in what we do. We create digital gold and silver currencies and we sell those into circulation for people to treat as speculative vehicles, probably in the Western world, maybe as stabilized currencies in developing nations for trade and commerce. And we let you choose how you want to use those currencies. But once we developed this new kind of money, we were like, well, how are we going to use it? Right? And that's when, right? It was like, oh yeah, the other side of the equation. So we started looking into the payments technology and what payments technology was out there to enable these kinds of transactions and how are people interacting with regular money and cryptocurrency. And we found that while there are a lot of cryptocurrency wallets out there that allow people to get in and trade cryptocurrencies, there really wasn't much out there for businesses and merchants. So now we've been spending a lot of time developing this technology so that people can easily accept crypto payments, settle to cryptocurrencies, accept traditional payments, and have all the benefits of traditional payment systems with the added benefit of blockchain ones. So that's a mouthful. I'll throw it back to you there, but that's just sort of the surface level of what we're up to at LODE.
It's huge. That's huge. Yeah. That's absolutely huge. And so thank you for breaking that out so delicately and sharing what you do and where you're heading. And I think that gives more confidence to the future, right? You said 5 to 10 years earlier, you see the transition, you see this becoming a more stable asset, a more recognized. And I think you're right. I agree with you, right? It takes time to really adopt this new thing. Anything that's new. When the iPhone first came out, everybody jumped on it, and then look what happened, right? It would explode in your ear and it would catch on fire, but it was something new, right? It was something new that we hadn't discovered before. So you're right. And it's going to take time. It's going to take patience, and it's going to take getting grandma to understand and get to the level of comfortability, right? To where she's like, okay, well, I understand this. I can buy goods and services. So I don't need to use this dollar that's, got a president's face on it anymore. This is my new currency. And that takes time.
It does take time. It's really well put. And if I can just use one final metaphor here, because I do know that we're getting close to the end of the show. You're an investor. You're obviously a very intelligent man. You've probably seen the adoption curve graph before. So for those of you who don't know, a really simple breakdown, you can Google this into your computer, look up adoption curve graph. It starts out very small with innovators. Then you have your early adopters, right? And the curve goes up. Then you have your early majority, And then you have your late majority, and most products and things then go into what's called sunsetting, where they kind of like slowly but surely close down. And the metaphor, the reason I bring this up is to paint the picture of where we're at right now. I would say we're right around the time where Facebook started hitting the mainstream. So, people are like, oh, do you have a Facebook or do you have a MySpace, right? Like most people have kind of heard about it, but not everybody and your grandma and that crazy aunt that you only see at Thanksgiving, has a Facebook yet. Nobody's trolling internet, internet troll farms aren't yet on Facebook. We are at that point where there's still a lot of room to grow. So if you feel like maybe you missed the boat on blockchain and cryptocurrencies, or that you're, that it's too late, I would encourage you to reach out to a financial expert, get some professional advice, and start looking at building additional digital portfolio for yourself, because this is, in my opinion, the biggest wealth generation event of our lifetimes. And I want everybody on this bandwagon with me for the ride.
Huge. Thank you for that. How can people connect with you? How can we grow with you and learn more and get on board before this train takes off?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're interested with what we're doing at LODE and want to learn more about us, you can head over to LODE.one. We have great chat support where you can speak with somebody, who will bring you up to date immediately. Real human beings, not robots. You can hop on our Telegram channel. We have a really passionate community of people who are just so pumped about the cryptocurrency space at large, but also what we're doing on the project. If you want to yell at me on Twitter about all the things I may have minorly gotten wrong, it's just my full name, as you can see on the screen there, at Nick Prouten, Nicholas Prouten at Twitter. And if you want to watch me play news anchor and talk to really interesting, analysts and personalities from all over the financial sector, you can head over to LODE Pay Media on YouTube. So that should give you a wide host of options. You can also send me an email at nickp@lode.one, and I'll be happy to reach out to you at my earliest convenience.
Huge. Mr. Nick, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day today to give back in this way. And this information is phenomenal. This is huge, right? This is what is the future. And I want my audience to get on board and to really see that this is no longer a trend, right? Cryptocurrency isn't just a rumor anymore, right? It's not something that's just going to pass. It's not a passing fade. It's here to stay. And we need to make the transition. So thank you for what you do. And thank you for sharing this.
Thank you, Marcus, for having me. It's been a pleasure. Take care.
Absolutely. Give him one more round of applause, y'all. I hope this message has served you. I hope this was impactful. And I hope this helps, right? I hope this interview, Mr. Nick graciously graced us with his presence and gave so much information today. I hope this message has served you. So like I always end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and take care of business. This is Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show, signing off. Love you guys. Bye.